Hello, my friends, and welcome to a space where pleasure is treasured, relaxation is not what you think it is, and life firing on all cylinders is what we're about. If you are somebody who wakes up every day asking for way more, consider this your happy place. Welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. I'm your host, Heather Nichols. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Creation of Living podcast, episode number two. Today, I would like to have a quick little jam with y'all about something that is a commonly known psychological term, also has profound impacts on our energy, in all ways, and something that's a recent conversation, also in access consciousness, that has been really rocking a lot of people's worlds, and that is cognitive dissonance. So, cognitive dissonance is a phrase that was I learned it a long time ago when I was in college and I was studying human development, and it's so cool to be exploring it from an energetic perspective now, because it's one of those things that is everywhere in our world and we don't even realize it. And it's so profoundly, like, we have these experiences of cognitive and energetic dissonance every day. People that are aware, people that are function from more of an energetic point of view. And it is one of these things that we grapple with all the time, and we don't even realize that we grapple with it. So cognitive dissonance is when something shows up in your world, simply put, that just doesn't really match what it is that you know. You're aware that something is off, and it doesn't match, like how you have learned something to be, or I would say even more so from an energetic point of view, what you know to be. And one of the conversations that's been really, really life-changing for me from the tools of access consciousness is about how we know, like, we are energetic beings. We have so much energetic awareness, and we have to kind of figure out how to work with that from the moment that we're conceived, really. And it's not a cognitive thing, but it is an energetic thing. And then it becomes more of a cognitive thing as we are basically educated through our, most of the education systems in the world to think like adults. And that starts around age 6. We're educated into society. And the whole advent of education even was to train children to become, functioning members of society and like good little adults. So around 6 years old, when kids enter school, they start to really be educated into a more of a cognitive, structured way of being, and not really encouraged to know what it is that they know, to be who they are, to have their own unique awareness of the world. Kids aren't acknowledged, and they are in some places, and I'm so grateful for those places. But in most of the world, they're not asked what they know. They're not acknowledged for being infinite beings who have a lot of awareness. And so with that, so many of us grow up with this cognitive dissonance really, really kind of wreaking havoc in our worlds. And when you have a lot of energetic awareness, you'll notice these subtle differences in energies where it's like you might have a sense that something is true or possible, or something should land in somebody's world in a particular way. And then what comes back to you is not that. And it's based on the limitations of other people. It's based on their points of view. It's based on people that are just unkind and, not present. Maybe they're stressed out. It's not that they're bad people, but, adults get stressed. They don't show up in the greatest of ways. And so we grow up as these little beings that are like, we come in knowing so much about so many things. And we have these experiences over and over and over that don't match that. And every time we do, because most of us are not, we don't grow up being asked what we know, being encouraged to know what we know. So as that occurs, it's like, it's this thing that just like chips away at your being. Actually, it chips away, and not in a permanent way, but in a way of like where you allow yourself to really know what's true for you, to really go for what it is that you would like to be and create in the world as you get older. It's like all this cognitive dissonance is like layered on top of you. And it's like you're this amazing diamond that has all kinds of layers of mud on top, from everywhere you've given up on what you know, everywhere you've given up on your awareness, everywhere that you've, foregone you in favor of the other people that you are sure know more than you do. And so we just pile mud on top of the diamond that we actually are, that we always were. And, anything with mud on it is going to be inhibited in some way. The diamond can't shine as brightly. You can't move as effectively in the world. You're not able to create in the way that you would like to create. And this is also something that we lock into our bodies, because our bodies take on the energies, like our minds and our points of view and all these things that we solidify in our world. They influence how we create our bodies. Our bodies are something that we create every day. Our bodies have this amazing capacity to evolve, to regenerate, to become new, and to heal. And also beyond that, like to be new, to regenerate and renew themselves and create themselves even as greater every day. It's because our bodies are evolving all the time. We're influencing that with our thoughts. We're influencing that with the energy of our mind and our thoughts and our conclusions, what we allow ourselves to do, what we allow ourselves to be, what we don't allow ourselves to be. And so all the mud piled on you, the diamond, from all of those years of cognitive dissonance, things showing up where you're like, gosh, that doesn't seem like, why does it have to be that way? And think about this. As a child, did you have any experiences of, that doesn't make any sense to me? Why does it have to be like that? And I know for me as a child, I was very aware, extremely energetic. Nobody talked to me about that at all. And also, I would pick up on all these little nuances of the cognitive dissonance and the energetic dissonance. When things would show up in my world that didn't match what I knew, it would confuse me. And I started to learn actively. I remember doing this, that I started to actively learn kind of like how to relate to people, because I didn't understand judgment. I didn't understand like what was appropriate and what wasn't, because that was always based, that's, usually based on judgment. I didn't understand that people could, like, if you just said something that was true, that it might hurt someone's feelings. I am slightly autistic. But there are those of us who we had to learn. We had to sort of like, okay, this doesn't really make sense, but I'll learn it, and those of us that have a lot of this kind of cognitive dissonance and energetic dissonance are very, very smart energetically, not necessarily book smart or numbers smart or anything, but smart energetically. And so you take those capacities and then you start to use them against you and be like, okay, well, so I remember doing this as a kid and going, okay, well, I can't do that. I need to remember that. I can't say that. I need to remember that, because I didn't understand that people were just so sensitive to things and that like you couldn't just be who you were and say what you wanted to say and people could just like take care of themselves. I didn't get that. I had to learn it. And in learning it, I literally educated myself, and I was educated out of being me in a lot of ways, because I really didn't think that I could function in the world in a way that really worked for me. And I mean, in a way that, let's say that in a different way. I didn't think I could function in the world in a way that was going to make my life easy, and I really thought there was something wrong with me, basically, is what it boils down to. So I had to adjust me based on enormous amounts of cognitive dissonance, where the world didn't make sense. This little thing here didn't make sense. This little thing here didn't make sense, all day long. And these things happen because they're so energetic. They happen all day long, every day. They become our lives. And we just start to kind of tell ourselves, well, all right, I guess I just need to like do the structure of how things are supposed to be, because I just can't figure it out. I obviously am missing the gene that, allows me to know how to relate to people or how to do things correctly. And so, and when you're smart, you just diminish yourself and you tuck all these parts of you over here. And then you're like, I can be anything, and I did. I went to an Ivy League college. I got a master's degree. I was very successful in navigating the world, and just kind of managing my cognitive dissonance with it all, And then I found these conversations in Access Consciousness where I started to go, oh, wow, I know something. And what I know is far, far more valuable to me than all of these things, all of these kind of like rote ways of doing and being that I learned. And so as I started to explore that, and it really is an exploration that you have to do very deliberately. It's a choice you have to make to explore these spaces, that uncharted territory. Not a lot of people might explore it with you. That's okay. Don't worry about it. I will. There are people that will, and I think there's a lot of value in exploring these spaces with other people, not because you need them to validate you, which can create its own issues, but because when we get together, expanding things energetically, and people are looking with awareness, and they're looking from a different perspective, and they're looking with curiosity, we actually can expand each other's awareness of things in a particular type of container and, exploration. We can expand each other's awareness of things beyond the cognitive dissonance and really into this space of what each one of us knows that is just so different, so unique. And I say, like, to me, that is your greatest wealth and your greatest asset, is when you start to really be you in such a way that you no longer give up on you. You no longer give up on what you know. You no longer say, well, this is just how things are, so I'm going to have to just suck it up and do it, to make my life as good as it can be. Well, the creation of living is about your life being so great, so great and phenomenal, and in ways that most people will never allow. So this really is a conversation for people that are looking for something far beyond what is and what has been, looking for something that is phenomenal, and a life and living that's phenomenal in all ways, in all aspects, in all areas of life. And it takes a lot of diligence. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of play, willingness to be different, irreverence, a lot of things, a lot of different energies, a lot of which are super fun once you start swimming in that space, that where you get to explore, hey, what's true for me here? What do I know beyond the cognitive dissonance, beyond all these places where things are just, when anything isn't right, what if you went to what it is that what's true for you, rather than trying to work it out or trying to figure it out? That is you trying to take something that's a lie and turn it into something that's usable. It's kind of like if you have, if you've ever had some piece of, equipment or machinery, let's say you have, a toaster in your kitchen and it doesn't work, and someone comes along and they're like, well, we might be able to like tie these wires together and give you another, 3 days out of it, but it could be a fire hazard, and you're just like, no, just get a new toaster, the cognitive dissonance is kind of like that. It's like trying to make something that has cognitive dissonance work, where you're like, something isn't right here. When you try to make it work, it's like the toaster, tying wires together. Instead of going, new toaster, easy, done, and that's kind of a funny example, but it's what popped. But when you go, something isn't right here, and that means that I know something. That means that I'm aware of some lies here. That means that I know something that's greater, that's different, that's far more dynamic than all of this, and you start to go on your way exploring that and creating a greater future for you and for the world, or, anybody that's willing to have it. And, in our lives, when we thrive, the world does. So that's also very energetic. But you start to, forge your own path, exploring what's true for you, knowing that anytime something is off, something. What if that was your default? Now, the body piece I started to mention earlier, I want to just circle back to that with just a little bit of a mention. And this would be more of a deep dive for another time. But with bodies, our bodies hold all these energies that we create them from. So if you have a lot of cognitive dissonance in your world, we all do, we've all grown up with it, it gets actually locked into our bodies. It turns into pain. It turns into limitation. It turns into dysfunction. It turns into illness. It turns into lack of energy, or, our bodies kind of process and assimilate a lot of these energies. And then they start to they really start to diminish how our bodies can show up. And this could be true. Like one example would be, a concrete example would be food. There's a lot of stories out there about food, how it's supposed to work for you, what you're supposed to do with it, how much, of what kinds, blah, blah, And when we don't ask our own bodies, hey, body, what's true for you here? What would you actually like? What works for you? Because every body is different. Then we start to, if we don't do that, which we're not taught to do, and we don't develop a communion with our bodies over time, we sort of hang our hat on the structure of things and we go, well, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to do it the way they say to do it. But there's cognitive dissonance in that. There's energetic dissonance. It doesn't match what your unique body would like to have. And so as you get more into that, you start to just kind of dig your heels into that world more and more. There's your communion with your own body goes out the window. You forget how to listen to your body. You stop listening to your body. Your body gets more bound and wound and limited and solid and structured, and there's more pain, there's more dysfunction. All of these things can change when we change the cognitive dissonance, and we can change that with the tools of how we work with ourselves in our lives and just being more present. And we also change that by changing our bodies at a molecular and cellular level. And there is in Access Consciousness, we have these body processes that are amazing energetic processes. There are these energies that we run as, hands-on energy work. We work with the body, we run these processes, and it undoes a lot of this stuff. And there's a new process in Access that undoes a lot of the cognitive dissonance that has been locked into our bodies. And it is absolutely phenomenal. I received it last night, and my body was like, I could feel all these places unwinding in my body of limitation and disorganization and structure and pain. It was incredible. And for those of you who already know Access Consciousness, perhaps you've taken a foundation class. There's a 3-day body class where you get to receive and learn a lot of these processes and energies. And, you're basically receiving energy work for 3 days. It's incredible. And this process is included now in the 3-day body class, of which I do facilitate. And I have some coming up. I have one in Boulder at the end of February. I have one in Mexico in March. And then in the Middle East, I'm going to the Middle East in Bahrain, and in Italy at the Castello di Castel Borgone. How's my Italian accent? So lots of fun ways to play and explore what that is all, how we can unwind this in our world. And for the more for unwinding the cognitive dissonance more with how we are in our lives, there's lots of verbal tools and conversations and processes available for that as well. One of the things I'm also going to be starting on February 25th, I believe. I always get the dates wrong, so somewhere in there is the Generative Business Pods, which is a 6-month creation intensive where we get together for 6 months. We really dive into these and other types of conversations and tools for creating the business of your life and living. It's not even necessarily your business, although yes, if you have a business, great. But the business, when I think of business, I think of your whole life, everything you do, everything you create, whether you have a job or you don't have a job, or you have a business, you have a family, you have a body, you have relationships, it all is part of the business of your life and living. And we explore some very cutting edge energetic tools from Access Consciousness, exploring a different universe of creation that is really about you being you and creating from what you know, beyond the cognitive dissonance and into the beauty and the joy, the ease, the relaxation, the glory of you being you. That is your greatest asset. It's your greatest wealth. You will create the greatest in every area of your life if you function from you, what you actually are, the diamond underneath all the mud. And we can, get the mud out of the way so you can really start to play in far greater ways than ever before. So these things are all available on my website, heathernichols.com. There's going to be a new website very soon as well, as part of to match the Creation of Living energy and podcasts. So keep an eye out for that. It might be a little dusty on my website now if you're going there soon. We're doing some mega construction. So, but you're invited to just explore all of that. And I hope this conversation was a contribution to you. And, there's more podcasts on my website from my previous podcast as well. YouTube channel, tons of videos there. So, you know where to go to tap in for more. Thank you so much for being here and being you. And have a beautiful, beautiful day. Thank you for joining me for the Creation of Living podcast. If this conversation was inspiring to you, share the love. To work privately with me or for info on my upcoming classes and retreats, go to heathernichols.com. Have a beautiful day, and remember that the world thrives when you do.